Welcome to today's live virtual learning session on GIS and SAP Enterprise Data Integrity and Accuracy. First things first, I hope you and your families are safe and healthy. John and I are thrilled to have all of you with us today. Through today's session, we would like to share our experience and point of view on how proper data management between SAP and geospatial systems vastly improves consistency and quality of utility key data assets. Now, both John and I, we have witnessed that a rigorous data management approach drives cross-organizational efficiencies while answering critical questions about business KPIs, both regulatory as well as corporate. I'm sure a lot of you who have joined this session would agree that this is one of the hot topics of discussion within your organizations. Today, we will also learn how Aquarion, a leading public water supply company, established consistency and integrity of data assets between ArcGIS and SAP. Towards the end of the session, we would like to throw some light on a blueprint for data consistency and management. With that, let's dive right in. Before we get into the different sections of the story map, I just want to set a short preamble. We understand that asset-intensive industries have millions of dollars of investments in generation, distribution, and transmission assets. Now, all of these assets are geographically distributed. Several of them depend on Esri's ArcGIS as the mission-critical system driving creation and management of geospatial data. So, in your organizations, you would have deployed, the ArcGIS geometric network, utility network. You might be working with the ArcGIS pipeline data model or the new utilities pipeline data model. All of these industries and organizations use ArcGIS as the system of records, engagement, and also insights. So all geometry, as you understand, is resident in the ArcGIS platform. Now, on the other hand, SAP is the mission-critical system for driving core business processes. Now, this includes operational performance, financial results, and workforce management. Field work order management and preventive equipment maintenance functions are provided by a variety of SAP applications, such as Enterprise Asset Management, SAP Utilities. Now, the location of these assets is generally resident in the ArcGIS system. Now, integrating and improving the consistency of these data assets is essential to deliver the benefits of digitalized business processes, both on and off the field. Now, this paradigm has kind of led to a replication of dimension of master and transactional data, such as attributes, characteristics, models, vendors, quantities, and so on and so forth. And these are being replicated in both GIS and SAP systems. Now, consistency and the quality of the common GIS and SAP data assets is essential for driving cross-organizational efficiencies. Speaking of cross-organizational efficiencies, let's learn from John on how Aquarion achieved this. Over to you, John.
Okay, thank you, Sagar. A little bit about Aquarion. First, we're the largest investor-owned water utility in New England. I believe last I checked, we're 7th in the nation. We've been in the water business since 1857. We are a subsidiary of Eversource, which is a large infrastructure and electric provider here in the New England area. And a fun fact, the second president of Bridgeport Hydraulic Company, which was the predecessor to Aquarion, was P.T. Barnum, who was famous for being a circus promoter. And this is just a little bit about the number of folks that we serve in the towns and cities across Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. The picture on the left needs no explanation. And the picture on the right is our headquarters located in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So we had some goals for enhanced data consistency between ArcGIS and SAP. We had a legacy implementation when we went live with SAP in late 2006, early 2007, but we wanted new and advanced technology and real-time integration and field level bidirectional synchronization. That's a mouthful, but I'll explain it later. And then we also wanted to expand into business systems integration beyond SAP. The legacy application that we had was specific to tying together SAP and ArcGIS. We see value in tying together other business systems into GIS as well. And this is a snapshot of some of the data that we've got across the systems. We actually don't integrate all of these, meaning like the fittings and service lines are resident within GIS. We do not have representation in SAP. But right now, this is a pretty good picture of what we've got from an object mapping perspective for our Connecticut data. We'll talk a little bit more about other data opportunities later. Certainly the master data, hydrants, mains, valves, connection, cross connection locations. And then we've got in the neighborhood of 75,000 plus SAP notifications, as well as about 1,800 water quality complaints that are also synced. That's about what we've got on a yearly basis. So it's a bit of a snapshot of the types of data that we're talking about and the quantities. So it's fairly substantial.
So just to kind of expound on what John was telling us about the SAP landscape and the Esri landscape at Aquarion, I just want our participants to understand that you yourselves would have complex implementations, right? Implementations that are serving a number of departments across your organizations, different use cases, different applications, and the key here is the trust of the business users, right? They are at the front lines, ensuring that the KPIs are met, and the SAP team as well as the GIS team are kind of coming together to ensure that these KPIs are met. So taking Aquarion as an example, they are ArcGIS enterprise users, right? So they've been heavy Esri users for a number of years now and made that transition from going from a 10.3.1 to an ArcGIS enterprise setup, and essentially leveraging their investment in Esri through different applications. Could be native mobile applications used by the users on tough books, web applications, and whatnot. So it's in a broader sense, it's a very varied implementation, different aspects of the ArcGIS platform being used to answer different kind of business questions. And of course, on the SAP side, that's a beast of its own, right? So the SAP implementation, which is basically SAP ECC with plant maintenance, and it's hosting all of the business data related to the assets, your transactions, notifications, work orders, and whatnot. So, like John mentioned, with the initiative at Aquarion Water Company, I think the question that we wanted to answer, or the objective that we wanted to meet, was how do we ensure that the business users have complete trust on the data that is reported to them, be it geospatial, be it coming from SAP. Irrespective of the system that they're comfortable with or they engage with, they should be able to see the same information at all times, right? So there is no inconsistency. And that is what we were trying to address at Aquarion. Back to you, John.
Right. So as Segar mentioned, data inconsistencies between the two systems was really one of the drivers for looking at a new solution. There were some limitations in the way that our transactional data was processed. And once we hit those limitations, users could no longer trust what was being seen on a map. So if you're seeing a difference between your transactional data in SAP and what's being shown on the map, you lose the trust and you're not getting the business value out of the spatial integration. We found that trying to expand our integration to include other locations in Massachusetts and New Hampshire would be a much more expensive proposition requiring additional licensing. And just in general, there was a lack of flexibility in providing enhanced integration with the objects and transactions, transactional data that we already had. So we really weren't able to move forward as quickly as we would like to really take advantage of the integrations. So we were looking for another solution.
Right. Now, keeping all of this background in mind, what we also need to talk about is what are the traditional single-threaded integration methods that organizations have been using for a number of years. And the other scenario is that you do not have any platform today that ensures that SAP and ArcGIS are in sync all the time, right? So, with these traditional one-threaded or single-threaded integration methods, what they fail to recognize is the importance of common data between these two systems, right? So all of you who are familiar with SAP and ArcGIS, you have the option of storing data in complex data models, right? So SAP has its own way of modeling data. ArcGIS, you have a number of options, right? So you could be using a very complex geometric network. So I know for a fact that Aquarian Water Company geometric network is, at the heart of a lot of network-based analysis that Aquarian does. So you could be working with APDM, UPDM. So both of these systems have their own data models, so to speak. Now, considering this, the authenticity, accuracy, and the integrity of digitalized business processes is contingent on this data that we're talking about. Now, with Unity Engine, we've been through the number of years that we've supported Aquarian on the GIS side, we've gained a very good understanding of the business workflows. What is the reason behind creating the data that they create? How is that used? What are the business users looking for? So on and so forth. And so the focus with Unity Engine was to improve the consistency and quality of the geospatial and SAP data assets. And this, in turn, as a business benefit, should make Aquarian realize or meet or answer the critical questions related to regulatory and corporate KPIs. So Unity Engine itself is an SAP certified product. It is listed on the ArcGIS marketplace. It is listed on the SAP App Center as well. So as far as the best practices of integration, the quality, the standards, have been vetted, and it is certified for integration. So what we'll do next is, to make this session more interesting, John and I have a video of Unity Engine live at Aquarian, and we would like to show you how this is working at Aquarian. What are the different use cases? And John will talk us through those videos. So if you can give me just a quick minute, I should be able to open up the video for you.
Before we do that, Sagar, I think there was a poll that we wanted to ask some questions.
Sure. But Christina, yes. Do we have any questions coming in? Anything that John and I can answer?
Right now, we have a couple of polls. Which technology is your organization using? And I've just shared the results out with the participants. Those results are 60% of the participants are using both ArcGIS and SAP. And 34% are using only ArcGIS and 0% only using SAP. So hopefully that's the first results. And then the second question we can leave open for a while, asking what the major data challenges are that people are facing.
Right. I mean, I'm pretty intrigued by the numbers. So good to know that 60% of the participants are using SAP and ArcGIS, and the remaining are using ArcGIS. So definitely, as far as geospatial data and platform is concerned, I think ArcGIS is the standard there. and we all have a majority of the users using SAP. So I think, John, this is a good stage for us to dive into the videos, unless you would like to cover anything else.
No, sounds great.
All right, so you should be able to see the video now. Over to you, John.
Okay, great. So this first video is actually the tool in action. This is our GIS website that was built prior. Cybertech helped enhance it for us. But what I want to show you is that there's a hydrant here, and we are going to use that hydrant that I copied the link from to create an SAP notification. We're using notifications primarily instead of work orders for our integration, but either way can be accomplished. So what I want to do is show how we can initiate a piece of work in SAP, how that then goes through the Unity engine, and then how it appears on our GIS website spatially. So there I've created the piece of work. I can select what I'm looking to view from a synchronization perspective. Right now, I'm just looking at the notification. I've got to pick my parameters. And there's the notification, how it appears in the sync engine. And then we'll scroll over to the side and look at what that piece of work looks like as far as Unity engine is concerned. You can see that that's what I just created. Right. Now we're going to go back to the map, and I'm going to use a query tool to see how the notification appears on the map. And I'm just keeping the query fairly simple for the purposes of the demo. And you can see there's my notification. And if I drill in a little bit, I'll be able to show the details that you saw both on the SAP side as well as within the Unity engine. There we go. So it's a piece of pending work. There's the notification description, and it was created on the 28th. Now I'm going to go back into SAP and complete that notification, including recording my static pressure, excuse me. So this is a special use case that we have for, we're not just feeding the transactional data back to SAP, we're actually going to apply the static pressure reading that the field tech would take out in the field when doing hydrant maintenance. And that's going to post to the actual hydrant object within ArcGIS. Okay, so now I'm going to add equipment, the equipment record for the hydrant update in addition to my notification query. Takes a few seconds to appear. Those settings can be any time frame you want, from 1 minute to daily to hours. If we get an opportunity, we'll show you how that configuration works for the tool itself. And there you can see the static pressure reading that I just entered, along with the date and the notification that it applied to. And then, of course, the notification details showing what I actually did within that notification. So this is a good example of the pass-through. It's a good way to monitor what's going on. It's very clean. It's very easy to see. And now I'm going to requery. I want you to see that the static pressure SP equals 94, right? That's hydrant number 127, because that's going to change momentarily. So the notification is no longer found because it's been completed. So we have a separate layer for completed notifications, and we found that completed piece of work, but you can also see that the static pressure has changed to 75, representing what I just recorded. There's the notification details. And then on the hydrant object itself, I'm going to show the static pressure and the date the static pressure was recorded. and the notification related in case somebody wants to go back to SAP and take a look at it. Could you pause there for a second, Sagar?
Sure.
Okay, so I believe this, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to add a few things, John, before we go to the next video. And, this is important for the audience because you might be sitting and wondering, what kind of geospatial applications can we use? What do we need to do on the SAP side, so on and so forth, right? So the first step before we, went ahead with this implementation itself was to have this exercise where, Aquarion team and Cybertech team sat together and understood the data models, right? On the GIS side, we had a good knowledge of what was happening, understood what was happening on the SAP side. So you will have these complex data models. It is important to understand what is common between the two systems, right? So that's your first exercise. What can be mapped very easily? Is there a need for data replication at all, right? Can you just keep some things in SAP because that is the system of record for business data, and as far as geospatial data is concerned, Esri is your system of record. So the application that John was running through, in fact, is a geospatial application built on top of ArcGIS API for JavaScript and ArcGIS Enterprise, right? So they recently migrated to the ArcGIS Enterprise platform, and their GIS website, all the other geospatial applications that they use are leveraging the ArcGIS Enterprise platform. So this exercise of, or as we call it, blueprinting, is very critical to the stage of this implementation, and that would apply to any organization. So having both teams sit together, defining what is important for the business, why do you need it? Because in many cases, excessive mapping of data is also an issue, right? Because there's no need for you to map in some cases, right? So all of that needs to be weighed in before you can make that decision of going forward and actually implementing the solution. So you could be an ArcGIS online shop. You could be a full-blown ArcGIS enterprise organization. You could be using out-of-the-box applications like Collector for ArcGIS. You could be using desktop tools. And on the SAP side, whether you're running SAP ECC, S/4HANA, irrespective of the database management system that you have today in place, the solution works with all of those scenarios, right? So we've kept in mind that the deployment patterns on both SAP and ArcGIS can differ from organization to organization. And all of those contingencies have been considered while building this product. John, I'll go back to the second video, and then you can quickly show them, the different configuration options available.
Right, so this recording is displaying what we've decided to map between the two systems. We've got some hydrants, mains, and valves, notifications, and water quality. Here's the scheduling aspect, right? There's a lot of scheduling flexibility at an object level, and also the mapping, right? The mapping setup is right here, very easy to see. Transformations are used where we've got different key values within the ArcGIS domain versus the SAP domain. So there's an example here for enclosure type, and you can see the key for our valves is words, text-based in GIS, and then on the SAP side, the key values are numeric. So we need to have a transformation so that we knew as we were going from GIS to SAP how to transform those values so we would have consistency at the object level. So we kind of went through some of this before, but this is a list for our live system of distribution valves that were created. And you can see these attributes that have been added. If you're familiar with SAP terminology, characteristics are user-defined fields. So we can add those in. And then here you can see a couple of errors. And those errors could be due to a data anomaly. Do we have a domain problem? Is there a difference in the domain between one system and the other, well, that's something that we can easily see what the value is that's causing the problem. We can go through and rectify it one way or the other. We talked a little bit about the notification and water quality complaints, transactional data before. Here's a live view of a few days ago of some data that we processed. We tend to process the notification data pretty quickly. I believe it's set to every few minutes, 10 minutes. Sometimes there could be a number of changes, so it takes it'll take a couple more minutes than one might expect to sync between the two systems. But you can clearly see all the runs there. Now we'll take a look at water quality complaint. And again, the data processes through here, pushes through some of the location data, as well as some of the type of complaint, with taste and odor, where it was located, and all that's pushed through. It's important to get that spatial representation.
And I think the other important thing, John, is for the audience, is while this is a product, with the product you're also getting your own administration console, right? And as you can see on your screen right now, I'll just pause the video for a second here. You have so many options to control how you want to run this in your organization, right? So, and that is very important from a data quality and integrity perspective, that you are in complete control of what is happening. You are the owners of the data. Yes, you have these two enterprise systems there, but ultimately the organization, right, owns the data, and that trust of the business users is very important, right? So right from whether you want that synchronization to be bidirectional or unidirectional, what are the different assets that you would like to configure? So today, if you're a water utility, you would be working with mains and hydrants and valves. An electric utility would be working with transformers and meters and so on and so forth. But the advantage with this system is you might start with one asset, but you can easily scale up to 50, 75, 100 assets, right? And at the same time, a lot of times with the traditional integration methods, a lot of things get lost in translation. So basically, you would have these jobs running behind the scenes, but you're not really sure if everything is coming in, and if it is, are all these validations being honored? So it also gives you a very detailed picture of how every job ran, what happened, why did it fail, right? So either teams, could be your geospatial administration team, could be the SAP team, they could look into this and kind of figure out. And this is kind of a continuous process. I think one thing that I'd like to really highlight is a lot of organizations fear if this is going to change the overall workflow drastically, right? You are kind of familiar with what happens in your organization. You have set business processes that you follow, so on and so forth. But what I want to say is, if this involves a certain change in your workflow, it's only for the better, right? So that pain is going to be temporary. The results that you see are going to be permanent. So I think, it's probably worth investing in that time to look back at your workflows and see, are we doing the right thing? Are there any changes required? And then take that decision to invest in that time to improve the business processes. And then you will see those results last forever. John, sorry, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Sagar. I think the recording is just about done, but you can see here, as Sagar was talking, that we have the capability of mapping through our service points from GIS. It maps to connection objects in SAP. So this is a mapping replication that we had for years, and we chose to continue it as we went forth with Spatialytics Unity Engine.
Thank you, John.
So we had a number of business benefits as well as lessons learned, and Sagar alluded to some of them before. It's really important upfront to determine what objects you want to map, what fields you would want to map between those objects, and what direction you want them to map. Which system is going to be the source data and which contain the source data and which is going to contain the replicated data. Once again, we had already had a system in place, so it was really pretty easy for us to determine and carry that forward. But despite that, we found some data anomalies. We had actually upgraded to SRE 10.6.1 the beginning of this year and did a production refresh of our data into our test environment. Despite that, we ran into some data anomalies that weren't apparent to us before and needed to be corrected within during our rounds of testing. So I would suggest you make sure that you're doing several rounds of testing, see where the data anomalies are, decide if it's something that's missing in the configuration for the mapping, or if it's poor data on either the SAP side or missing data on either side, and make sure you correct that. Just make the production migration far more straightforward. I talked a little bit before about the value of the asset and transactional data. Spatially, it's really important to see if there's patterns that can emerge. So that's why we've mapped our water quality contacts complaints, for an example. If you see them spread out amongst an area and you've got taste and odor problems spread throughout an area, that tells you something that's a little bit different than if you see them all lumped together. And this helps our utilities crews get out there and address the problems as quickly as possible. I also had mentioned before, we're looking at this as a platform of the future. We talked about integrating other business applications, but what really is exciting for us is to have the ability to create a notification on the map from a given asset and have that map back to SAP. Our field folks have been asking for that for ages. Why do I have to look at two different apps, one for my work orders and one for my assets? So to be able to create that work order notification right from the interface, of a map is extremely important. We're also looking to we're looking to add our Massachusetts and New Hampshire assets and transactional data. I mentioned that before, that was more expensive to do with our existing or our previous integration. And then also to perhaps map our supply operations facilities. We have a number of water treatment plants, reservoirs, storage tanks, etc. We have representations in both systems, but we've never been able to tie them together. There's certainly value in doing that. We want to take a look at that as a potential future improvement.
And just to add to what John just said, I think if you look from a business perspective, right, your organizations, right, at least 66% of the audience today has made investments in both of these enterprise systems, right, and they are kind of the pillars for your business right now. Oftentimes, these systems are working in silos, right, and that's the challenge for organizations. And you would have had a lot of discussions on how to bring them together. How do we ensure everything is correct and accurate, and everybody's looking at a single source of truth? So by ensuring this data integrity and accuracy, what you're also doing is you're maximizing the investment in the Esri platform as well as the SAP platform, right? Your the financial department, your C-suite executives are confident about the decisions that they've taken in investing these systems. So I think bridging the gap between these two systems, because they're always going to be there. You're going to continue to use the Esri platform and the SAP platform for years to come, right? And if you've already not thought about bringing these systems together, I think probably after this session, I would hope that you guys can start considering it. And of course, the methods of integration could vary, but the point being that you're really maximizing the investment in both of these systems for your organization. Okay, so we've kind of come to the latter section of this session, and I hope you've gotten a good idea as to what goes into this entire process. It's of course complex, definitely. I'm not going to say it's easy. Will require a lot of thinking, whiteboarding sessions, and whatnot before you can actually embark on this journey. But what we found, in our experience with working with Aquarion and Aquarion themselves within the organization and with some of the other customers, is that of course you realize the problem, but then to have this one team that looks after your data, and you need this master data management team that is always keeping in mind that what does the business need? We are generating so much of data. What are we doing with it? Is it actually being used to create any intelligence? What can I do if I add if I add the location context to this business data that I'm getting? Is it going to help me answer more questions? So you would have a lot of business data that you're working with today, but if you add that geospatial context to it, and you bringing these two systems together, I think that adds a lot of value in terms of answering key critical questions and meeting those KPIs that have been assigned to you. Of course, mapping the generation and consumption of this master data. So like I said, excessive mapping is also an issue, right? So if you have these two systems and you have the data all figured out, now next is what is common between the two systems, what needs to be shown in the other system, what does not need to be shown in the other system, what is the data that the users need to have control of, right? So oftentimes you'll hear the field crew saying that, well, I should be able to close this notification from the field, right? Why do I need to call somebody, let them know that I'm done with this work? Similarly, on the SAP side, it's always good to know where are all of these assets spread out geographically, right? It helps you take important decisions on which area to focus on. And so all of your organizations, right? You're into distribution, transmission, generation of electricity, gas, water, whatnot, and you have a lot of assets on the ground that you need to keep a track of. So I think with the key to data consistency management, of course, is it's not a small thing. It's a process that you have to embark on and trust that process before you can have that blueprint ready for your organization. And thereafter, it's much easier. Once you know what you're aiming for through something like, Unity Engine, you can really easily accomplish that. And you've seen examples of those through the videos that, John spoke on. Right. Now, the last section of the session, I just want to talk about a little about the future directions, right? From what we've learned from Aquarion, from conversations that we've had with other utilities and asset-intensive industries. So I think one challenge that all of you will probably face is the number of data sources are increasing, right? You have SAP, you have ArcGIS, you could have SCADA, you could have any other enterprise system that you rely heavily on a day-to-day basis. And the data volume and size is going to increase exponentially. So the onus is on you as an organization to ensure that you're extracting the maximum value out of this data in a clean, authentic manner, right? As this volume is increasing, you also have to worry about the different norms that you have to comply with. And so some of you are working around strict norms that have been levied by the state government, or there are water utility norms that you have to comply with, electric, gas. So you're always working within a boundary as far as security and compliance is concerned. So that is also a very important thing to keep in mind while this data is moving between these two systems. And yes, you're ensuring that the data is accurate, but you also have to ensure that it's done in a secure manner, right? And in the current situation that we are in, we are all spread out in different parts of the world, and anybody and everybody who needs access to information just to do their work on a daily basis, this becomes really important in the current context. So, and of course, with business processes evolving, there is always this need of data to be there in front of you when you even think about it, right? So just at the click of a button, I should be able to see what is happening in my business, right? How is my team doing? Are they meeting the KPIs that have been assigned to them? As an organization, how are we doing? Financially, operationally, so on and so forth. So we've seen those use cases come to life, right? It's not always about creating notifications from the field or executing work orders. Yes, that's a very critical part of it. But eventually, how are you being measured as an organization? How are your employees being measured? So that is, I think, very key to this entire process. And with that, what I'd like to do is, John, if you have any closing comments on, as a water utility, what are your thoughts? What are you guys looking at in terms of continually improving the quality of SAP and GIS data? John, any thoughts on that?
Well, we talked about a couple of opportunities for the future. I think it's important to note that we're only a few months into this implementation. So we're still just kind of taking a break from where we've been. But I talked about some of the future opportunities in terms of, making things a little bit easier for some of our folks to use.
Awesome. Right. So, as we bring this session to a close, I hope this has been really informative for you. We tried our best to keep this short and interesting, and at the same time convey whatever we wanted to. For a lot of us, we're used to doing these sessions in person, and that's always our first preference. But I'm so glad that so many of you joined today, and we would like to once again thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you, Esri. Thank you, the audience who joined us today. And I hope this has given a clearer understanding of at least where you can start to ensure data integrity and consistency between ArcGIS and SAP.